Welcome everyone to today's webinar. My name is Tasha Dyson. I've been here at Protus 3 for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years on Friday. I'm your moderator for today. We're going to be talking about what can we uncover with digital forensics. This is the second time we've done this webinar. We actually had really good attendance on the first one, and so we decided to offer it again, and actually don't have as good attendance today, but we have some different people. So I'm joined today by Rusty Gilmore and Amanda Strickland. They are two of our experts here on digital forensics. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. So Rusty, please introduce yourself.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Rusty Gilmore. I've been here at Protus 3 for about 16 years. My career started with the Raleigh Police Department, where I was an officer and investigator for about 10 years. And then I went into the computer industry as a consultant, and then worked for the federal government as a network security expert and consultant. And here at Protus 3, I've basically been involved in the computer forensics aspect of all the investigations we have to deal with.
Hi, I'm Amanda Strickland. I graduated from Meredith College in 2017. I've been with Protus 3 for about 2 years now. I do computer forensics and assist with investigations.
All right, thank you. As we get started, we have a couple of housekeeping items. First, please mute yourself during the presentation. That'll help us keep the audio clear. We do want questions, and we do anticipate answering questions, so please put your questions into the chat box over on the right-hand side of your screen. We're going to try to get to all the questions at the end. We do want them though, so if you have questions at any point in the presentation, please feel free to share them. Our standard disclaimer is we're not attorneys, so please do not take anything we provide here as legal advice. You should always consult with counsel before you make any decisions. So as we just said for the description for this webinar, digital forensics is more than just getting dirty pictures off a phone. Computers are so much a part of our daily lives that any investigation isn't really complete until you look at the digital devices as well. We're going to discuss today how digital forensics can be used in workplace investigations. So I think the first question that we have for Rusty and Amanda is, what are some of the situations where digital forensics can help a workplace investigation? In other words, what kind of cases use digital forensics?
I think for the most part, the cases we get involved in with corporations and through attorneys have to do with theft of data, employees that are leaving or even currently work there taking data with them. There's also issues of EEOC complaints, sexual harassment, general workplace harassment. Sometimes you can use computer forensics to determine what is really being said now with the use of social media, texting, mobile devices, and such. So I would have to say that EEOC complaints, theft by employees, theft of financial information, financial records, money, and then with theft of data are the biggest cases we get.
We also do some computer hacking cases. So like if a company's email account or something like that gets compromised, so we'll do company hacking cases, and we will also do like wire fraud, wire transfers that have gone to the wrong place, and that sort of thing.
All right. What's the most common case you see? What do you see most often?
I think most often it's employees taking data they should not take. Whether it's an executive in the company or a sales rep, or an executive can take the documents that were used to create the company and they go out and start a competing company. So, he's in violation of a non-compete order. So we have to go in and determine whether, did he take anything, and is he in violation of the non-compete order. So I would say the majority of the cases we get involve the theft of data from a company.
Sure. What kind of data can you get from a computer using digital forensics?
Well, that's a long list. You can get pretty much anything. I mean, images, pictures, emails, any kind of document that a user can create, internet activity, even internet searches, literally the keyword searches that were used in Google are captured and maintained on a computer. Now, that's all created by the user. Then you've also got login information. You've got changes that were made to the computer at any given time. The USB devices connected to a computer is even logged in the system. So you can get a tremendous amount of information from a computer about what the user did and what was going on with the computer at the time the user was using it.
Amanda, what would you add?
We can also pull mobile device backup. So if you have a cell phone, a lot of times people connect their cell phone to their computer and back it up either to the cloud or to the device itself. If it's on the computer itself, we can often go in and find that device backup, that backup file, and pull it out. And it's like we have how the phone was, the state of the phone at that point in time. So that's pretty cool to find.
So even if you're looking at a computer, if somebody's got their phone backed up to their computer, you're getting data off the phone at that point as well.
Correct, yeah.
It's like a 2-for-1 special.
Yeah, kind of.
All right. So when you're talking about getting the data off a computer, you're talking about, if I'm understanding this correctly, both sort of what we can see and what we can't see. So I'm thinking about all the Word documents, all the pictures, all of my internet history, but explain to me about the stuff that you can't see. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but there are two aspects of that. One is the system information. So what the computer itself is doing at the time you're using it, what wireless access points it's connecting to, whether or not a thumb drive has been plugged into the computer. That's all registered at the system level where the user can't really see that kind of activity on the computer, but it's there for us to view at another time. The other kind of information that the user doesn't see on the computer would be the deleted data.
All right, so what's the first step in a digital forensics investigation?
To identify where the data is. 5-10 years ago, that wasn't a problem. You were handed a phone or you were handed a computer, and you collected the data from it. You imaged the device. Now you have to worry about the data being on thumb drives, being in the cloud, being on multiple different devices. So I would have to say the most important thing for us to do, especially in business cases that use so many different accounts spread out all over the place on so many different computers, is where is the data that's relevant to their matter? Your email may be in the Microsoft cloud or on Amazon or on Gmail, Google. If we can't identify where the data is, then we may not be collecting what we need.
And then once we do identify where the data is, we will collect it either using, for like computers and cell phones, we will image to the device, whereas accounts like in the cloud, such as email accounts, will use special software to collect that data.
So you said imaging, so what is imaging and how long does it take?
Imaging is a secure, forensically sound method of collecting data from an electronic storage device, or ESD as it's mainly referred to, and collecting data from a phone or from a cloud site. Now, forensic imaging means I'm taking a bit-for-bit copy of that storage device. That's the sectors on the hard drive. I'm not just collecting data. I'm collecting every sector on that hard drive so that I have an exact duplicate of what is on that hard drive, even including deleted data, empty space, unallocated space. So I'm not just going after documents on a computer. I'm going after the entire hard drive, and I'm collecting it in a manner that it's considered an exact duplicate of that original hard drive.
And as far as time, it usually just depends on the device and the amount of data that is on the device. Most cell phones and mobile devices take anywhere from 30 minutes to maybe an hour or two, whereas computers and servers and your big hard drives are going to take probably 2 to 4 hours, maybe longer.
So when you're making an exact copy, you're making a copy of everything of that drive specifically, not just the stuff you can see, but also the stuff you can't see. Is that right?
Correct.
And so the length of time kind of depends on how much stuff you've got or how big the drive is.
How big the drive is. Yeah, it's, if you've got an empty filing cabinet and you have to move it, you have to move the whole filing cabinet, regardless of whether or not there's anything in there. So it takes up the same amount of space. So I'm not just grabbing the files out of that filing cabinet. I'm literally making a duplicate of the filing cabinet, regardless of what's inside of it. So yeah, whether there's one file on that hard drive or 1 million files on that hard drive, it's going to take about the same amount of time to collect the hard drive, just because I'm going after the physical collection of that device.
So in other words, you're getting blank pages as well as pages that have stuff written on them.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. So why is it better to examine a computer using digital forensics than just making a copy of the data, of me clicking on a file and copying it over to a thumb drive?
Well, one of the advantages of computer forensics is it's been ruled in courts that a forensic copy of a hard drive can be considered best evidence. The reason for that, it's been determined that when you forensically image a hard drive, you don't change anything, which includes metadata. Metadata is generally, it's data about data. Specifically, metadata is the information about the file, the name, its location on the hard drive, the date, time it was created, last accessed, last modified, and even activity. You know, where has that file been on the computer? You can download something, you know, through Google. You can move it to another folder and then email it to somebody. So all that information is contained in the computer. That's metadata about the activity on that file, and in some cases that can paint a big picture. And it's important.
Yeah, and I would add on to that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, like Rusty was saying, it's important, like you use digital forensics because you don't want to change any of the data, and a lot of times people don't realize how easy it is to change data. Just something as simple as turning a computer on can change system files and change stuff in the background that you don't realize.
So by making a forensic image, we're making a direct, exact, perfect copy that we're not going to accidentally alter by looking at.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't alter a forensic image without it screaming that it's been altered. So yeah, that's impossible to do.
Okay. So once you've collected all the data, what happens next?
Once you collect the data, you got to process the data. Imagine, I mean, I can't just image a hard drive and then start going through every file on a computer, because there can be 2 to 4 million files on the average computer. So we use programs to process the data, put it in chunks of information, Word documents, user-created documents, creates the file structure. So you see the My Documents folder, the user folder, the programs folder, and we can see all that. Plus, it gives us information that we can see the internet history. Internet history and activity on a computer can be kind of odd to look at. The program, when it processes it, gives it to us in a more understandable format and a chronological format as well.
Yeah, processing really helps to kind of speed along the investigation and make it more efficient. Another thing that happens during processing is all that data gets indexed, and indexing allows us to do keyword searches on the data, which really kind of moves things along and help us to narrow down what's important to look at.
So let me see if I can make an analogy that works. If I've got a giant novel and that is our hard drive, indexing is literally like creating an index for a book. It's taking every word and then telling you where it's located in the original text. Is that a good analogy?
Correct.
True, but
yeah, I would say so.
our indexing is more thorough in that it indexes everything, not just the important words. Like a book, it's just looking for specific or more relevant words, you know, on a particular page. Computer forensics, it indexes the. So, I mean, so it gets down to indexing every piece and part of the data on the hard drive.
So it's indexing, to extend the analogy further, it's indexing every word, not just the important words.
Correct.
Every bit of data, not just the important data.
Yeah, every bit of data that it can
Correct.
read. Yep.
Okay. So we've figured out where the data is. You've imaged it, so you've created a forensically sound one-for-one copy. You've processed it. What kind of programs do you use for processing?
We use EnCE for processing and Internet Evidence Finder. Those two programs we use to process data collected from computers. Internet Evidence Finder can also process other data, but those are the two main programs we use to process data from computers. And then we use Celebrite to process data from mobile devices.
Yeah, we'll also use, for accounts like in the cloud and such, we'll use special software to collect that. So our primary one for collecting email accounts, for example, is a program called Forensic Email Collector. We'll also use, so tools such as EnCE and stuff can be used for collecting the data as well, but we primarily use more physical equipment to collect data. So, the main device that we use for collecting data from hard drives is called a Falcon Neo, and that's created by a company called Logicube. But yeah, so we'll have some tools and equipment that we use for collection, and then some that we use for processing, and sometimes some tools will do both.
So why do you have all these different tools for collection and for processing?
Not every tool does everything you want it to do perfectly. And plus, you need to double check yourself. It's good if you can run a process from two different tools over one collection, then you can kind of double check to make sure what one tool says you is there, the other tool kind of tells you it's there too. So it allows you to double check some of the information you get from one tool against the information you get with another tool. They don't all collect the same way. So sometimes you get more information with one than the other. And it all depends on the case and what kind of information you're looking for. We mainly see that with cases where we need USB activity history and link file history. And one tool may do better than the other, depending on the operating system of the hard drive or what kind of data is on the computer or how much it's been used. So that's why we use two tools.
Kind of like having a toolbox at home. You can use a screwdriver for a lot of things, but not everything.
True.
You can use a screwdriver as a hammer, but it's not a good idea.
No.
But it works in a pinch. All right, so EnCE, internet email, whoa, one more time. EnCE, Celebrate.
Internet Evidence Finder.
Internet Evidence Finder, Celebrate. What else?
Forensic Email Collector. Sometimes we'll use FTK, which is Forensic Toolkit. There's a lot of applications out there and software out there. Some of it is open source, some of it is free, some of it's not. And they all do different things and process the data in different ways.
Okay. All right, so we've figured out where the data is. We've made a forensic image. We've collected the data. We've processed it with all these different programs. When you're processing data, can deleted data be recovered?
Yes, with a caveat. deleted data still exists on a computer in most circumstances. When you hit the delete key on a file, you're not deleting the file, you're deleting the little icon. The way to show you that is if you go look in your recycle bin, the file's in your recycle bin. Well, it's not the file that's in the recycle bin, it's the little icon's been moved over to the recycle bin. That pointer points to the file, so the file never moves, it's the pointer that moves. Once you empty the recycle bin, all you're doing is removing that pointer from your computer. The file still sits somewhere on the hard drive. So with computer forensics, since computer forensics doesn't care about anything other than the raw data sitting on the drive, it can identify that document even though there's no more link to it in the operating system. So that's how deleted data is uncovered. The processing of these applications we use literally looks at data on the hard drive and said, hey, this looks like a Word document, puts it together, and then presents it to us for viewing after it's done processing.
The caveat with that is that over time, that data can be overwritten. And once that data is overwritten, we cannot recover it anymore. Computer forensics will not recover it. So like Rusty said, the pointer is deleted, the file still stays there, but over time, as the device is used more and more, that data will be overwritten because the system sees that you don't need it anymore because you've marked it for deletion. So eventually that data will get overwritten and we will not be able to recover it.
So when I delete a file, and even if I empty my recycle bin, that data is still on my computer somewhere.
Yes.
Yes.
It's just been marked as what? Okay to write over?
We're getting geeky, but yes, it's been marked. The space that file resides in has been marked as available for other data storage. So you're not really erasing a file when you hit the erase button or the delete button. You don't erase it. You're just marking the space that file sits as now available. It's called unallocated space. A hard drive space is not linear. You don't have data in one, it's all data and then all empty available space. Data is spread out over the hard drive depending on how it's used. But when you hit the delete key, that file stays there. The computer knows that that space is now available for another file to be put. So that's gets to the point where sometimes we cannot recover data because once the mark is available for new data can be put there at any time, and voila, you've overwritten the file. The only way to erase a file is to use a program to write over the file. You really don't go erase it. There's no eraser. But there's a program called Eraser, but there's no making the hard drive space blank where that file sits. You've got to write over the characters that created that document, and then that will make it unavailable to recover.
So as long as we sort of look for the deleted file fast enough before it's been overwritten, pieces of it might still be there even though the pointer is gone.
Yeah, that's true, but even, if you go through the process of deleting and removing from the recycle bin, you may lose some of the metadata we talked about earlier, which would be the file name, date and time it was created. That information is maintained by the Windows operating system, and then sometimes it's embedded in the file itself. But as it goes through each step of the process where it's eventually to the point where it can be overwritten, you do lose some of the metadata. So, and there's no time frame on that. It could be a day, it could be a year, just depending on how the computer is used.
After making an image and after processing, what's the final step of the process?
You can call it reporting, but it's providing the information to the client, whether it's the attorney or the corporation. that seems kind of easy, write a report, here you go. But when you talk about data and computers and documents and event logs and stuff like that, it can get kind of cumbersome. The applications we use help us put all that information into a report. So sometimes, yes, we write a report. Hacking cases where someone's network has been compromised, we write a report and use some of the computer forensics to substantiate the information we include in a report. Some clients just want a copy of all the employees' emails. If we collect 10,000 emails, I can't put that in a Word document and prefer not to. We'll hand them those emails in a format on a thumb drive and give them the ability to review those emails on their own. So I say report or delivery of data, whether it's a report or data itself, that's our end goal.
Yeah, the report can take on many different forms depending on the situation and the type of data and everything, but the point of it is to kind of give you a narrative of what happened around a specific event or around a specific time, like what activity took place on the device in question.
Okay. So thinking back at some of the previous cases we've had, can you give me an example of where digital forensics has helped paint a more detailed picture? I'm thinking of a specific case, a difficult case.
From my point of view, the most difficult case has been the termination of an IT manager. So this is the sole IT person inside of a 300-employee company trying to terminate the IT manager who has access to every one of your assets, has the password to all of your assets, is the only one who has administrative rights to all those assets. To me, that was the most difficult. We literally went into the company, imaged his computers, and then were able to recover passwords and some of his activity and things he had been doing over the past month or two, and put a picture together so when we terminated him, we knew exactly the information we needed to get from him to keep the company running.
Wow. Another example, most unusual maybe, or most fun.
Amanda?
Well, I mean, I like to investigate the wire fraud cases a lot of the time. So one specific one that I'm thinking of is a person was trying to buy a house, and they were interacting with the realty company to buy the house, and it was getting to the point where they needed to transfer the money. So but the realty company, somebody got into their email account and they sent separate wiring instructions. They emailed the person trying to buy the house and sent them an email and said, hey, never mind, forget those first wiring instructions I sent you. These are the new wiring instructions. And so they sent the money, and it was not the right account. But I like to investigate those just because there's a lot of pieces everywhere. There's a lot of logs you have to look at. There's different sides to the story everywhere. You got to figure out how it happened, and you take all this information from all these different places and put it together, and then you realize what actually happened step by step. So that's kind of cool.
That sounds like a variation on the sort of standard wire fraud scam. The standard wire fraud scam is that you're sitting at your desk and you get an email from the CEO that says, send me money. In this one, if I'm understanding you correctly, they were already supposed to be sending a wire transfer. Somebody just changed the instructions.
Correct, yes.
Wow. And we were able to figure out what had happened when?
Yes. Not in time I don't think we were able to get any of the money back, but yeah, we were able to figure out which account specifically was compromised and how it snowballed from there pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah, and the issue with those is who's liable. And so when you've got 3 or 4 different entities involved in a wiring transaction, everybody wants to know where the ball got dropped. So it becomes very important to collect the data from everybody's computers, collect all the emails so you can identify, okay, here's where everything went wrong, and then these are the events that transpired and led up to the theft.
Okay. All right, that's difficult and fun. Give me an example of an unusual case.
They're all unusual.
Give
Amanda.
me one you can repeat on a webinar. The weirdest case.
A CEO took 40,000 documents from the company, dumped them on the Dropbox, and kept them on his laptop when he quit, which included HR records. That was difficult in that not only do you have to identify what he did, but you've got to almost go to him to delete those files. One unique one was a social security number for patients for a medical facility were posted online in a public FTP site and got cached by Google's search engine. And the way it was identified was a gentleman searched his social security number online and found it. And the unique part of that was we had to work with Google to remove all the cached files from their main servers, including social security numbers. That was pretty interesting.
Never any two cases the same?
Certain details, maybe not really.
Yeah, the theft of data is common, but none of them are alike. Because an employee can work from the office, or he can work from home, or he left 6 months ago, and in some cases he left yesterday. So all of them differ, even though the issue is the same. I mean, I had an employee one time that left a company. She had been employed by 4 companies, HR, and plugged in a thumb drive that contained the employment record for all employees from the past 4 companies she worked for. Problem was, these past 4 companies are some of the largest employers in the state, and they didn't take kindly to that issue. And it was an interesting conference room meeting. Back in the days when you could sit in a meeting room and have a conference, it was an interesting meeting with about 8 or 9 attorneys to deal with that issue.
Okay. Got any other examples of particularly unusual cases, something that someone did to someone else and then had to determine whether or not that occurred? Can I remind you of one?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Revenge.
Yeah, I didn't know if that would be appropriate to bring up on a webinar, but we did work a revenge porn case. So in this matter, an ex-spouse was accused of sharing a picture, an intimate picture of his former spouse on the internet. I think it was shared on like Craigslist and all kinds of places. We did examine all the devices for the ex-spouse and to see if we could determine if the picture was sent or posted from any of those devices. But we were never able to do that.
Okay. Let me look and see if we have questions. We have one question. I think we already covered this, but I'll ask it again. Can you name some of the forensic imaging software you frequently use? I think we hit that, but we'll hit it again.
Yeah, EnCE is probably the one we've used the longest. I've been using it since I was here, so over 16 years. It's gone from version 1.5 to, what are we at now,
8.11.
Yeah, so we've been through 16, 17 years of EnCE. Have also used Forensics Toolkit, FTK, made by Access Data. That's probably the most prevalent software package used by the federal government, FBI, and the like. The Internet Evidence Finder has picked up steam. We started using it about 8 years ago when that company started out, and it's gotten real good reviews, and it's used by the FBI as well, based on my last conversation with them. And then the program we use to collect data online, we started using that about 3 years ago, maybe 4, and it's really interesting. Some of these companies are created by law enforcement officers, and some of them are just created by people who see a need to be able to collect information, and they create these applications, and they grow. Their user base will grow. If the user base grows, then the application gets better. But there's thousands of forensic type applications on the internet, only because there's unlimited amounts of data and types of data you need to collect. So everybody's got a little application that they can use to collect certain data off of a computer. But those are the main ones we use.
Okay. Can you tell who is sitting at the computer?
Right now I can see you. No. No, in computer forensics, you can't do that. And that's one of the issues I run into when I explain things to attorneys, whether they want to prove somebody did something on a computer. I said, I can prove to you what happened on a computer, but unless you get other means of identifying who was sitting at the computer at the time, I can't tell you who did it. And I've even had cases where somebody said their computer was hacked, and then it went to a particular site. Now, with that being said, I can look at the information on the computer and tell you whether or not it's been hacked. For the most part, it can be hidden sometimes, but no, I can't tell you who is sitting at a computer.
Okay.
Yeah, and with that being said, so in office environments, for example, if a user has like several profiles set up on a computer, or if there are profiles set up on the computer, we can tell you who that profile was for. Like if that profile was for Tasha, that's fine, but Amanda may have Tasha's credentials and she could use Tasha's profile. So we can't tell you exactly who was there, but we can tell you what username was used.
Now, and yeah, I did have a case one time where somebody claimed the computer had been hacked, but an inappropriate act took place on it. Somebody did something wrong on the computer he shouldn't have done, or did something that identified wrongdoing. And this person said he didn't do it. But 30 seconds before he did that, he logged into his Duke Energy or Progress Energy account on a web browser, logged in and paid his bill, and then the improper event took place. So that's circumstantial. That doesn't put him sitting at the computer doing that work, but that kind of information, should something ever go to court, that kind of information just builds up to showing that more than likely it was the person in question who did the activity.
So in a situation like that, it's highly unusual that it's highly unlikely that he would have paid his power bill and then immediately got up and left his computer and somebody did something and then he came back and did something else.
Right. Now, if there had been a 20-minute lapse, okay, there's a bigger question, but a less than a minute lapse between one act and the other, you know, kind of leads you to draw an interesting conclusion. So, and that's why system information is so important when you do computer forensics, depending on the case. You don't know what somebody's going to argue in the end. All you can do is put together all the information you can to paint the best picture you can about what's taking place, and then you may have the answer to that argument down the road. Sadly enough, a lot of these cases can go on for a year or 2 years before they ever go to court or go to depositions and stuff like that. So,
all right. Got another question. When using Google to do searches, how much and how long do they keep your data?
Forever.
Yeah.
You do have the ability to set the Google history.
Your browser settings.
Yeah, you can go in there and tell it to keep it for a day, keep it for a week, a year, or forever. So you know, that history is there forever. Now, on your computer, internet history is kept in containers. And these containers can get fairly big. They're almost like databases. And you can go in and delete that information, but it's kept on your computer. I've had internet history on computers that have been several years old. Also have to realize that your internet history, if you've got Google, a Google account, Android phone, iPhone, doesn't matter. You've got Firefox, you use it, or Google, and you're signed in, and you're signed in on your phone, and you're signed in on your tablet, all with the same account. Anything you search on your phone will show up in your history on your Google account, which syncs with the history on the app on the computer. And that's important. Yeah, right, if you're signed in. That's important for two reasons. Number one, your internet search history is everywhere, possibly. And number two, where were you, from my point of view, where were you when you did the search? And that's something that's really important. If I'm on my phone doing a search, but I see it on the computer, I need to make sure that I'm aware of that, or else I make the mistake of saying that user account was searching on the computer instead of on the phone. So it's made things more complicated, but to get back to your true question, unless you delete that history, it's there until you delete it. And you just go to your Google settings to fix that.
All right. One more question. Are there any big challenges to forensic analysis in court? Does it hold up well?
Holds up fine. The biggest challenge is explaining technology. I mean, it's been a long time since I've sat in the witness seat. I've stood in front of a bunch of judges, but as far as being a witness in a trial was in Murphy, North Carolina. And as you realize, Murphy's as far west as you can go and stay in the state of North Carolina. I think 2 people on the jury, 1 person owned a computer, 3 people had ever touched a computer, and the rest of them had never seen one. Now, and this was not 20 years ago, so the issue is explaining a case to them and explaining data and how data moves and how it's manipulated and what it means to a bunch of people who don't understand technology. That's difficult. So, and thinking about it, we deal 2 million, 4 million files on a computer. You get a little bit of information in a case, you may be asked to explain a lot more than just that little information about a case. They may take you into other areas of the data you've collected. So it's hard to keep up with all that information. Just imagine what you can do on a computer. Now try and explain it without just now push the computer, turn it off, and now explain what you did on the computer for the next hour. It can get cumbersome. But that's the hard part to me, explaining it so people understand it.
Always, in any kind of expert testimony. So I don't think we have more questions. Is there anything else that we want our audience to know today that I haven't already mentioned?
No, I can't think of anything.
Amanda?
I don't think so, no.
Okay. All right. Well, that was our audience questions. So for more information, for more resources and support, you can contact us at protus3.com. You can call us, or you can email Rusty and Amanda as shown right there. Both of their email addresses are there and available. We have another webinar coming up in a few weeks. How can CEPTED impact security costs? And if you don't know what CEPTED is, that would be a good place to get that question answered. That'll be on July 29th also at 2 p.m., also virtually because we can't meet in public. Thank you very much for participating today. Hope you learned some good information. And like I said, if you have any questions, please reach out and let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all.